Welcome everybody to the definitive UFO news show with me, your host, Mr. Rob G. Not a lot going on in news right now as far as UFOs go, but guess what we're gonna do is jump into something that is something I think that should be talked about. As I look around the community, since I did the last show, I attended a few shows out there, because I'm one that likes to embrace the skeptic opinion in the conversation. Sometimes we do these shows and we don't always get skeptics to come in into our chats and kind of have the conversation with us. So I go out to the skeptic channels and I hop in the chat. I have the conversation with the skeptics there and see, where we can move the conversation. And it there were a few things about what I saw and the kind of conversation that we were engaged in that let me know where the skeptical opinion is on what we're doing and then what type of skeptics are out there, right? Because as we're going to go over today, there are definitely two sides to our conversation. You know how we look at it here. It's all about humanity. We're all one, regardless if you're skeptic, if you're not skeptic, whoever you are. If you're a human being, we're on the same team as far as where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get answers. We're trying to get to a point to where we can, potentially see disclosure within our lifetime, some sort of confirmation. May or may not happen, but this is what we work for every day. This is why we get together, do these types of shows, for that very reason. And what I found out is that for the most part, in these skeptic echo chambers, they look at the community in a negative light. And I think we kind of touched on some of this before, where I've said recently on this channel that there definitely is a part of our community in ufology, if that's what we're going to call it. Yeah, that's a name everybody wants to hang with the name. I think we should change it, but within this community that we definitely have a portion of the community that reflects on us all, and that is what I'm finding out is how they view the entire community. And I had to stand up for the community. You know what I mean? I was taking jabs from skeptics and their opinions and their ridicule. Let's be real, ridicule. And they want to paint us all into one corner. And I'm in there speaking peace and love, and hey, we could get together and have these conversations. We should be getting together having these conversations. And it appeared that most skeptics wanted to sit in an echo chamber and listen to other skeptics pretty much bash the community. And so I took one for the team, right? And so once I was done with that, I said, you know what, this is something that I need to speak to. If you've been around this channel long enough, then you know that we have done a show like this previously in season one, which was called Skeptical versus Non-Skeptical Logic. And, I think we're going to just pretty much go a lot deeper this time, right? As far as the message that we're going to give today. And this is not going to be a show where we bash skeptics, even though they bash on our community. This is more of an awareness. This is an awareness for us within the community, and it's an awareness for those not within the community. And I think that's what needs to be had, because we all, truthfully, we are all going for the same goal, because we have skeptics in the UFO community, hardcore skeptics. And it's like, okay, well, if you wish to bash the community, why partake in the conversation if that's your approach, right? So I kind of want to lay this out because I feel like it's my responsibility. I don't know that any, we talk about this amongst each other. We talk about this in back rooms. We don't really get to sit and address this to everyone. So hopefully some skeptics come in here tonight. I know I put this on Twitter. I put this on social media as well. So hopefully we at least get some skeptical lurkers coming through the building here. But let me go ahead and see welcome who has come here so far. Let me see here. Looks like we got Miss Catherine Jones in the house. Miss Catherine Jones, thanks for coming on in and showing up here tonight. This afternoon. I'm used to saying tonight. It's actually the afternoon. Thanks for coming in here. Let's see. We got Operation Shutdown. Operation Shutdown. Thanks for coming on in. Saying hello, Mr. Rob G. We got Magneticus Attractus. Thanks for coming on in. Say I was harassing Brown Dwarf. Okay, shout out to Brown Dwarf. Let's see, we got Richard Minnick saying good evening, an early show today. Yeah, I was like, why not do that? I thought it would be appreciated. Most people are doing things later in the day. So let's get this one out the way. That's what we're going to do. Cosmic Joe Chronicles, shout out to you. Thank you for coming on in. Super crazy movie geek. Thank you for coming on in. NHIology. I mean, I like that. We need to come up with something. And you'll kind of see what I mean by the time we're done here. Free Paul DeMond. Free Paul DeMond. Please free Paul DeMond. Let's see, who else do we have? Area 51 sighting. Is he live right now? Yes, right. Live right now, sir. We are here. Jay True Seeker, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. Let's see. Amy WC. Amy WC, thanks for coming on in. Thanks for showing up. Let's see. All right. All right. And looks like we are pretty much caught up. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Once again, on the face of it, there are two sides to the conversation. There is the skeptical side of the conversation. Then there is the non-skeptical side. I really don't like the word believer. And that's, what skeptics like to call this community a bunch of believers and, this religious sort of situation. And we know it's nothing like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and lay the deck today to kind of show that. Hopefully, we get skeptics to watch this and get an understanding of what it really is. They've never been in the community. They just have these opinions from the outside. But you're going to see some surprising things. You're going to see some surprising things. Kurt M., thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you showing up. Let me go ahead and bring up some of the stuff we're going to be using here today. And let's see here. All right. Definitive UFO news show, Skeptics versus Experiencers. Humanities divide ? And I think the answer is yes. Definitely humanities divide. Definitely the roadblock, one of the major roadblocks that we'll need to get to where we need to go. So let's go ahead and take a look here. We have the viewer call in line, which is 856-843-3444, or that's 856 the dig. If you're outside the United States, make sure you down 001-856-843, or that's 001-856 the dig. So we go ahead and get ready to get started here. Shout out to our members. Become a social soldier today. You can become a member too. Just click the little link in the description that helps support show, help make sure we put on the top quality, top notch shows here, right here on the social dig. And members, Ann Joanne, the beekeeper, D Nunley, Maggie M10, Flat 6, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, Wes Decker, Still Pooh 69, and Polly Rotterman. All right. So let's go ahead and get this thing going. Skeptic versus experiencers. So I have an opening that I kind of want to read here before we actually jump right into it. So give me just a second while I bring this thing up. Okay. All right, here we go. So with this being said, When the general public views ufology or talks about the UFO subject, it comes along with the longstanding stigma, mainly put in place by governments that have ridiculed experiencers in an attempt to quash the secret of possible ET visits to planet Earth. The terms crackpots, kooks, tinfoil hat wearers have been thrown at a community that has done nothing but report strange, anomalous encounters and sightings with craft and beings, and in some cases, cryptids and paranormal anomalies. And it's all we've done, right? All we've done is essentially had an experience and have reported these experiences only to be met with ridicule, starting from the government and then adopted by the rest of the population, essentially, right? As time has gone on the general public have adopted the stance of ridiculing this community simply because if they didn't see it, it didn't happen. In the mid 1900s, in an era where pop culture portrayed these experiences as science fiction works, something happened. Something happened. Actual UFO experiencers and the community that was being built saw an influx of fanatics of sci-fi book and movies who were enamored with what they read and saw on screen and would often look up at the stars and dream of what could be out there. So people who hadn't even had experiences during the mid 1900s, you had Star Trek, Star Wars, what was it? The oh gosh, the one where the robot comes off the spaceship and pretty much kills everybody, the one with the little eye. So we had all that going on, right? Pop culture heavily dived into the aspect of alien visitation and all those sorts of things. So you had a group of people never had experiences who were just enamored with the sci-fi and kind of brought themselves into the community just based off of their love for that, right? So that's essentially where we're at. Now, those dreamers, and that's what we're going to call them. We're going to call those people dreamers. So those dreamers would embed themselves in the UFO community and adapt stories that they had only heard from actual experiencers. These dreamers were now believers. So they've converted themselves. Now they are believers within the community, right? No harm, no foul at this point. These new believers found a hidden corner of the UFO community and began making up their own stories to fit in with the actual experiencers. But the problem is, a real experiencer can feel another real experiencer by details within the story. And we know this to be true. When you hear a story of another experiencer, sometimes, a lot of times, there's things about that story that really resonate and line up with things that you have felt. And that's how you can feel if someone's being genuine or if that story is coming from a real place. These believers found each other and formed their own subgroups within the UFO community, and these subgroups had leaders. This is where the terminology within the stigma changed, and these groups gave way to what skeptics of the subject often refer to as what they call us now the UFO cult, which I don't get, which I really don't get. And this is a graph that some of you may recognize this, but I'll explain this shortly. The problem was, looking from the outside, this label would be applied to the entire community, right? So even though there's this subgroup of people that have been labeled cult based on their activities and the way that they handled themselves, this term ended up being applied to the entire community. So, looking from the outside, this label would be applied to the entire community instead of only these subgroups within what is now known as ufology. Now, wherever you find a group of dedicated followers, which these individuals in these subgroups within ufology are dedicated followers, you'll find individuals that'll take advantage of those followers. But being an actual experiencer of the phenomenon, we spend our time and energy searching for answers to what we experience. Also, this means it's easy to spot these subgroups within ufology, and I think you can agree with skeptics that these groups give off a cultish, religious sort of vibe. We all know those groups. We've seen them. We know where they are within the community. We know what channels those people subscribe to, right? We don't patronize those channels. Most of us here know what those channels are, and I can almost guarantee you everyone here, no one here goes and watches those shows, right? So they stay in their own space within ufology. Now, wherever you find a group of dedicated followers, you'll find individuals that will take advantage of those followers, which we know, and I won't name any names, but being an actual experiencer of the phenomenon, we spend our time and energy searching for answers to what we experience. Also, this means it's easy to spot these subgroups within ufology. And I think you can agree with skeptics that these groups give up that cultist religious vibe. I read that before. In those subgroups is where you find these embellishers, these storytellers, these grifters. Now, what we're going over today isn't to no what we are going over today isn't to be used against any particular group. So I want to say that this isn't to weaponize anyone to be able to give you the power to down, anyone within this conversation, because really the end goal is for us to have the conversation together, right? This information is for awareness to self-identify where you may fall within this conversation and how you can readjust and search for the truth in what we're dealing with as humanity. So I think what you'll find by the end of this is, regardless if you're within the UFO community or the skeptic community, there are things to apply to both sides of the conversation. All right. Let me go ahead and move further into this. So what we have here, we have a graph on the screen. And I did this about a year or so ago when I did the previous show. And this kind of just really is a graph outlining what, when we're looking at the community, what part of the community we're looking at. So let me bring it up. So the red areas, the outer red areas. So think of the middle, the green area is a place where we get together to have conversation. This is where both sides come together, open minds. We sit up, we talk, we bounce ideas off each other, theories. We try to find answers. The outer yellow areas on the right side would be where we're at, non-skeptics, which is where we stand in this. We are the non-skeptics. The opposite side of that, the left of the green, you have the skeptics, the regular skeptics, the one you want in the conversation, the ones that will sit and listen to an idea or listen to evidence that's presented and then maybe shift their opinion based on what it is that they've heard. Now, the outer red areas is where we get into trouble. See, on the right area, on the far right, these are these subgroups that I'm talking about within ufology. These groups that are often labeled as cultish, and unfortunately, right, it seems like they're the ones that speak for the community when it comes to how the outside views our community. Right, far left, we have something just as bad. The red areas, you don't want to be there. The left area, far left, is an extreme skeptic. And this is kind of what I experienced when I was at the skeptic, visiting the skeptic chat. Just extreme skeptics. Oh, they were making fun of ufology and they were saying people were dumb for believing UFOs. And anyone who is an experiencer knows it's not about believing. You don't have to believe if you've seen something, right? Right? But that's not that. But that's what they're not getting. They're not understanding that. So that's why we're doing this today. So the way that we're going to kind of go through this is, and we're not going to run too long today. I'm going to try to get through this pretty quick. Um, all right, this is what we have. So let me come up on screen for this. We're going to start in this. We're going to start with those extreme non-skeptics, the believers, those subgroups within ufology. So I'm going to read this to you. These are characteristics of these groups, and so it's not really for us to see because we know where we're at within this graph, but this is for those skeptics out there and just everyone else to kind of understand how to differentiate what it is that you're looking at. So if you're experiencing the part of ufology where you'll find extreme non-skeptics or just believers, these are the type of characteristics that apply. Unquestioning beliefs, which means they accept claims without requiring any evidence at all. They're the dreamers, they're the believers, right? You could tell them a fish-headed alien landed and they'll just buy it. They don't need any proof, they don't need any evidence. They'll just take that, right? And that's how they get taken advantage of. That's how they end up in these groups where they follow a particular leader or a person who just tells them whatever and they just suck it up. Another characteristic is dismisses skepticism, views critical thinking as necessary or hostile, rejects conventional explanations, which means it ignores reasonable evidence-based answers, trusts personal experiences and anecdotes, which prioritizes them over scientific analysis. So regardless if scientists have come to a conclusion, which if you're open-minded might sway your opinion on something, these people in these subgroups don't want to hear that, right? They were told fish-head aliens are here, and that's what they're going to go with, right? Regardless, okay? So why they are compared to cults and religions? Why do people, point and call them cult members and ridicule them? It's a dogmatic thinking, rigid beliefs that are not open to challenge, like religious doctrines. Faith over evidence. Belief persists without empirical proof, just like religious faith. Charismatic figures. Now this one's a ringer. This one, followers may rally around influential figures or prophets. How familiar does that sound? Who you could probably put some names to that, right? You could point to a channel right now that identifies exactly what we explained. Now, unfortunately, that's the part of ufology that is blanketed, or the perception of their actions, kind of overshadows where we're at within, as far as the open-minded community. And it's a shame. And this is what I was talking about. This is what Lou Elizondo was talking about when he's talking about blowing up ufology. He was talking about this group. He was talking about this group right here. The extreme non-skeptics, followers that rally around influential figures or prophets. Belief persists without empirical proof, like religious faith. Right? And it's the thing is that you have skeptics that call this stuff out, but when do you have someone within the community point it out? And that's what this is all about. Because at the end of the day, and when we're done, you can look at these characteristics and see if any of these apply to you. Because you may have thought that you were open-minded, but you may find out, wow, I'm actually extreme. A lot of those points right there describe my involvement within ufology. And I think the thing is that there isn't any cutoff line between an extreme skeptic extreme non-skeptic, and then an open-minded non-skeptic, the lines get blurred in the middle. So you have spillover, which means extreme skeptics, you may find them in places where we are. You may find them in our chat rooms, right? You may find them in our chat rooms. We all are partaking in the same subject, right? And so this is why it's about self-awareness. Kind of, it's up to you to look at these things and determine where do you fall in this. And for the skeptics out there, these are the individuals that you're talking about. Never denied that there wasn't this sort of aspect to ufology. There definitely is. There definitely is. Moving on. Okay, this is more of where we're at, and this is what I was trying, attempting to tell people in that chat is that the UFO community is not all like that. There's actually different sections, and I had to speak to that because this part of ufology, the open-minded non-skeptic part, this is where we're looking for answers. We had experiences. We saw something. We want to know what that was. We want to know what that means. What are the implications of that? What happens next? Right? We're not surviving off of stories or cool stories. We're trying to get to answers. So some characteristics of which is most of us here, I'm sure all of us, firmly believes in certain phenomena, but remains open to new perspectives. So if the Tic Tac UFO, a year from now, the government comes out, releases their new black project, and it's a Tic Tac anti gravity craft, well, we can then change our opinions on how we view that. It's like, oh, okay, it's a government craft, right? The extreme non-skeptic wouldn't stand for that, right? So that there's the difference between the separation within the community, right? And then for the skeptics out there. So we're not all just believers. We don't all buy it. We're open to new perspectives all the time. And that's why I invite skeptics to the conversation because I would love for you to present something that gets my ear and kind of shows me something new because I'm always willing to shift my opinion. And I know most of you are too. And that's why we get together and have these conversations. So, respects skepticism and understands why others may doubt, right? We understand. We talk to skeptics. They're like, I don't really know. I need more proof. And we understand that. We understand that the photos are grainy. We understand that the videos aren't the best. We understand that even though this is data that we've captured and brought forward, that it may not be convincing enough in the form that it's in. We know we would like the 4K video as well. So we understand that. So we respect skepticism. We understand why others may doubt the experiences that we may have without having evidence there. Totally fair and totally fine. Right? Open to scientific or alternative explanations without feeling defensive. Right? I know this has got to be describing a lot of people here in the chat. It's got to be. It's got to be. Because this lets you know where you fall in this conversation. Engages in discussion rather than just trying to convince others. It's exactly what we're doing right now. Engaging in a discussion, not here to convince at all. Values personal experiences, but also considers broader research. We're totally okay with scientists taking the data and analyzing it. We talked about the Peru mummies. That's a great example there. We didn't just jump into that, said it's aliens, and say, hey, at least leave it on the table. Let the scientists take a look at it. Whatever they determine it to be, we'll run with that. We're okay with that, right? We're okay with that. So it's totally different than a full-time believer. Acknowledges unknowns instead of assuming every unexplained event has a singular cause. We know there's things like ball lightning. We know a plasma ball potentially could be a ball lightning, right? We all agree on that. We're not just going to say, "Oh no, that's definitely alien." Well, no, there's scientific fact that there are anomalies, phenomena called ball lightning, and then other things. There's sprites that shoot up from the clouds, like lightning essentially that shoots out the top of clouds. And we know it's all sorts of weird, uh, maybe weather phenomena. Basically, we understand that, and we're open to it. Yeah, let's take a look at it and see. We may discover something new. We may find out, that something that we saw is a result of weather anomaly. Because for one, we don't know everything. None of us do on either side of the conversation. So that's why being open minded is where you should be if you're trying to progress the conversation, because you're going to find out things you didn't know, right? Seeks deeper understanding rather than just confirmation of their beliefs. So all those points I think really signifies the people that I know in this chat, right? So there's proof right there for anyone on the outside of this conversation, and then even people on the inside that may not have realized that there is the split there. There's definitely two sides of ufology, right? All the points I just pointed here are not characteristics of anything that you would call a cult. This sounds like critical thinking right here. It sounds like a critical thinking group of people who are trying to gain as much information as possible in order to determine how this conversation or where this conversation goes. It isn't a predetermined conversation where we know the destination. But that's what you get when you're an extreme non-skeptic or a believer. That's what you get when you're over there on those cult channels. They tell you what the result is. Oh, I have the knowledge. Or I can tell you, I know all the knowledge. I know all about the ancient things. Let me teach you about the ancient things. Well, how do you know about the ancient things, right? No one does. No one knows. We weren't there. We could assume, we could make assumptions, right? But that's not what they do over there. So that's why I wanted to start with those two, our community, because I do have a problem with that. You know, that extreme non-skeptic side. Now, just like with any cult, you want to, if you can, you want to help somebody get out of that, right? So if we could move some of those people over to the open-minded side and kind of critically think for themselves and kind of redefine what this community looks like or how it's presented to those outside of the community, that would be a benefit for us. That would be a big help. But as it stands, there's definitely a side of the community that just embellishes, lies too, just blatantly lies, right? How else can I say it? Without calling out names. But I think we understand where we're at with that. So once again, this is for look at these qualities and just see where you fall. And we're gonna get to the skeptic side too here in just a second here. Actually, let's see, I think yeah, yeah. So the opposite side of this conversation, we're just gonna jump over to the open-minded skeptic, right? Because these are the people that we want in the chat. These are people that we enjoy talking to, right? Because we get to go back and forth. We're both open-minded. Maybe we have great data that we brought that makes them say, wow. Oh, okay, that's very interesting. Yeah, I need evidence, and you brought me some data. Now I can actually, recalibrate or reevaluate how I look at this or what I'm thinking about this, right? So, characteristics of an open-minded skeptic: questions claims critically, but doesn't dismiss them outright. Very important. Wants evidence, but won't just off the bat say, nah, not true, or not impossible, can't happen. If you bring them the data, they're open to it, right? You have both sides of the conversation that are open minded, then that's how we progress the conversation. So the yellow categories, these are where you want to be. If you intend on being in the conversation and moving this thing forward, moving the needle, positively progressing humanity, these are the spaces that you want to be in. So if you're being true to yourself, being true with yourself, then you know where you fall at in these categories. Seeks evidence while remaining open to unconventional possibilities. Unconventional possibilities because we don't know everything. And I think most people should agree with that. However, if you're closed minded, then you won't agree with that. Even though I point out things like we're sitting on a rock right now, floating in some sort of infinite space, and we are literally orbiting a ball of fire. Can you wrap your mind around that? This is what I try to tell a hard skeptic. Like, let's start there. Like, isn't that weird that we're doing that? Okay, acknowledge that, and then let's move the conversation on, right? Because seeking evidence while remaining open to unconventional possibilities is where you should be if you're a skeptic. Acknowledging personal biases and tries to evaluate information fairly, right? That doesn't sound like an opposition. That sounds like a teammate because that's what we would do. We do the same thing, right? That's why we work well together. And that's why it takes us two together to move this thing forward. All these characteristics align exactly with what an open minded, non skeptical person, how they approach it, how we approach it, right? So just want skeptics to know, man, we are aligned with skeptics. It's just the extreme sides of this conversation is where we get in trouble. But we'll get into that because it's actually pretty interesting. So engages in discussion rather than just debunking. How many people do we know out there that call themselves skeptics that debunk first? That's the first thing they do. Mick West. I'll call out Mick West because he's, I think he understands that he's a hardcore debunker. I think he really gets that. It's not a slight to him because he understands that that's who he is, right? Recognizes science has limits and some things remain unexplained. That's huge. It seems like that should be common sense. However, there's a part of the skeptical community that does not apply that to their thought process. Recognizes science has limits. We talk about that all the time. Science moves the goal line every 20 to 30 years. They rewrite the science books every 20 to 30 years. Pluto used to be a planet. The universe started by Big Bang until James Webb Telescope came out and now shows something different. Now they're rethinking that, right? So recognizes science has limits and some things remain unexplained. One thing I pointed out in this conversation with these skeptics, and I'll still go there. I'll continue to go back because that's where the conversation, that's the way it has to happen. If skeptics either come here to us and we can do it here, or I'll go over to the skeptics and we can talk over there. Either way, we have to get together and have a conversation. But, I'm telling them, I'm like, Think about it. 1,000 years ago, or somewhere roughly in there, the thought was the sun rotated around the earth. Now imagine if you had a podcast 1,000 years ago and you were pushing the notion that no, actually, the earth orbits around the sun. They were like, no, never happened. Right. And then science eventually shows you what the answer is. Right. And it's essentially what we're going through now. Things that people look at and think are impossible, give it 50 years, give it 100 years, it gets proven. We'll be long gone, but you have to be open to it and understand that you should be recognizing that science has limits and some things remain unexplained. We don't have all the answers. We probably never will. This will probably be something that always is a sticking point for any conversation for the next 10,000 years. Because I don't think even within that time we'll figure everything out. I just don't. So willing to change opinions if new compelling evidence emerges. Wow. Once again, that's the type of individual that I want to engage in conversation with because I'm the same way. Hey, open-minded skeptic, present me with compelling evidence, new compelling evidence, and I'm definitely willing to change my opinion on everything. You got to walk middle of the road. Open mind people usually walk middle of the road. You can be swayed either way depending on the date. I say that all the time. Respects experiences and testimony while balancing them with critical thinking. These are all points that I would love. Bring a skeptic in this chat right now that matches these talking points here. And I bet you by the end of our conversation, we have moved the needle a little bit further, right? So now we're going to get into a little bit of this is where it kind of gets a little fun, right? Because I'm going to give you some examples. This is really how the conversation should be taking place, and I'm just going to go real quick. So first, these talking points here. So open-minded skeptics, both yellow categories. We're getting together. We're having a conversation that moves the needle. These are the things that the points that we would hit with that. Both participants agree to keep an open mind. Check. They acknowledge that their perspectives might change or evolve. Check. The goal is understanding, not proving one side wrong, right, or wrong. Check. Some key elements: active listening. Each side genuinely listens instead of just waiting to respond. Check. Respectful tone, no mocking, dismissing, or belittling the other's viewpoint. Very important. In check. Asking questions instead of making assumptions, both ask for clarification. That's how you that's the tennis. That's back and forth. That's ping pong. Ping pong. Hit the ball to you, you hit the ball right back. Hit the ball to you, you hit the ball right back. Acknowledging uncertainty, both admit that they don't have all the answers. Because we don't, and that's the truth. So anyone that says that they do, which the people that say they do are found in those extreme categories, right? Those cultish sort of mindset when you act like you have the answers. There's no way you could have the answers. You live on the same planet we live on, right? Common ground. They find shared interest. More investigation is needed. And we both would agree on that, right? All right. Now this is how for some of these people that fall in the red areas, this is how a conversation should go. So this is how our conversation should go. So if we're getting together and we're having this conversation, this is how this conversation should go. So I'm going to play both parts. I'm going to be the non-skeptic, and then I'm going to be the open-minded skeptic. This is how the conversation should go, and did not go when I was engaging with skeptics the other night. So a non-skeptic is going to say, I've had some experiences that convinced me that UFOs are real and possibly non-human. I know that sounds crazy to some, but I can't deny what I saw. Now, an open-minded skeptic is going to say, I appreciate you sharing that. I don't dismiss sightings outright, but I like to explore all possible explanations. What did you experience? Non-skeptic is going to say, I saw a craft that moved in ways no known craft could. It changed directions instantly and accelerated faster than anything we have. This sounds like one of the conversations we're all familiar with. So skeptic is going to say, you know what? That's really interesting. Have you considered things like advanced military tech potentially or natural atmospheric phenomena? I'm like, let me think about that. Okay, so maybe we've done something like that. Okay, I could be open to that. I could be open to that. Non-skeptic is going to say, I have, but the way it moved and how it reacted to my presence felt intelligent. It didn't seem like a drone or experimental craft. That sounds like something I've said recently, and a lot of other people, right? Like, yeah, I thought about military tech potentially, but it just seemed intelligent in the way that it moved, right? So someone in the red area is going to shut that conversation off right there, like, oh, that's ridiculous, and then it's got to be something explainable. However, an open-minded skeptic is going to say, I get why that would be compelling. While I lead towards earthly explanations, I can't say for sure what you saw. It would be great if we had more data or official investigations into cases like yours. Very helpful statement coming from a skeptic, right? Helps move the conversation forward. And then a non skeptic reply would be exactly. That's why I think disclosure is so important, even if it's not extraterrestrial. The fact that so many people have similar experiences means we should be studying this seriously, right? That's how the conversation is supposed to go. That's exactly how it's supposed to go. But that's not what I got. That's not what I got. So we're going to get into what I did get. This is what I did get. And this is why I saved this for last. The best for last. Extreme skeptics. Now, this is what this group was to me based on responses, replies, the interaction, based on the dismissiveness, the ridicule, based on that. These points right here are the things that don't help the conversation. These are, if you see this, it's not going to be a fruitful conversation. It's not going to progress because if these people that live in this red area don't want the conversation to progress, they're not open to the conversation progressing, right? So an extreme skeptic, and it's gonna be shocking at the end. So an extreme skeptic requires overwhelming evidence before considering something possible. I mean, unreasonable evidence in some cases, right? Like I need a ship, I need the bean, I need the heart of the bean pumping in my hand to know that it's a real thing. That's like the level that they set. That's the bar that they set for evidence. Dismisses anecdotal experiences as unreliable or irrelevant. So that means your sighting, your experience. I don't even want to listen to that. I don't even want to hear your experience. You could have just been mistaken. You could have been dreaming. That's not possible. So you must be lying, right? Sound familiar? That's what you get from an extreme skeptic. That's what you get. leans towards debunking rather than open-minded investigation, right? Goes immediately to saying why what you saw wasn't what it was. No, it wasn't that. It was likely birds, balloons, drones, swamp gas. A list of other things, right? Not even saying, "Hey, let's talk about it. What did you see? What did it look like? How did it move? Did it?" Not even wanting to ask probing questions. Just got already got an answer for you. It's definitely not aliens. It's got to be something else, something that we know of and we understand, right? Prioritizes conventional explanations and rejects ideas outside mainstream science. So if it doesn't come through science, they don't want to hear it. And there's a pattern here. It's just nope, 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 nope. Everyone that we're going down is an immediate, I don't want to hear it. It's not aliens. Skeptical of alternative viewpoints, even when presented with compelling testimony or patterns. Aerial school, 200 kids saw a craft and the beings come out. Oh, that's not enough. Oh, that's nothing. How would you say that's nothing? 200 individuals saw this object. They all drew pretty much the same thing. They all said with the encounter, how could that be? That's very compelling. An extreme skeptic will not accept that as evidence at all, even though it's undeniably compelling, right? May exhibit cognitive bias by selectively accepting evidence that supports their disbelief. Perfect example. Soon as a whistleblower, and as soon as anyone comes out on the side of ufology to say, "Hey, this stuff is real. I worked with the projects." What do? Immediately go into ripping the person. Oh no, he's lying. Oh, he didn't do what he said he did. He didn't work where he said he worked. All these things is not true. But let someone on their behalf come out, like a Sean Kirkpatrick. Sean Kirkpatrick releases a statement, says with the UAP report saying, "Oh, we found no proof of extraterrestrial activity." See, I told you. See, we told you. There's nothing to it. Sean Kirkpatrick just released a statement that says there's nothing to it. So let's move on. So okay, so you can probe someone from within the community that comes out to then says that they, and tells their story, but you have someone on your side that releases a report that also has been caught in a lie before, and there's no probing or vetting done there at all. Because I bet you if you did, then you find out that, okay, the statement was likely not true. But as soon as the Arrow report released, as soon as the statement released, Susan Goff or Susan Go, whichever one you want to call her, Arrow at this point has not found any evidence. She released a statement right after every whistleblower. And then skeptics will say, "Oh, see, they said there's no proof of that." NASA comes out and says, "We have never seen anything. We don't have any proof of that." The extreme skeptics say, "See, NASA said they didn't have anything." Like no vetting, just accept it on the face. Sounds kind of like an extreme believer to me. Those are traits and characteristics of extreme believer, just accepting information and not challenging it or not requiring any proof. Arrow release, and I'll give you a perfect example. Arrow release a UAP report says we closed these cases as resolved, but they didn't show how they got to that conclusion, right? An open-minded skeptic would have said, "Huh, where's the data at? Okay, you closed it, but where's the data? I'd like to see the data." An extreme skeptic is just going to be like, "Up, they closed the case. See, they said it wasn't anything," right? And I know you know people who do this. So once again, this isn't necessarily to poke at these individuals, but it's just really to show you behaviors and allow you, if you are a person that self-reflects and is accountable, then you'll look at this and say, "Wow, I didn't realize I was an extreme skeptic. I didn't realize my approach to this was so extreme." and then maybe you want to change the way you approach it, right? It ends up being up to you at the end of the day. So, often rejects unexplained phenomena outright rather than considering possibilities. Just says, okay, you saw something, but there's no way it was aliens, so it's got to be X, Y, or Z. Aliens is just out the question. It's not possible, right? Right? You know, if you're a skeptic, do you fall in that? Definitely not helpful to the conversation if you are. As we go ahead and move on, I got a few more things here on these skeptics here, on the extreme skeptics. I want to save for last because there's a bombshell here, right? So this is some of the let me see. Okay, let me plug up this device real quick here. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay. All right. So all right, so these are some of the things that they might say. There's no such thing as UFOs. What people are seeing are just misidentified aircraft or natural phenomena. Or they'll say, all UFO sightings can be explained away by natural occurrences, human error, or even optical illusions. There's no evidence to support the idea that aliens are visiting Earth. Heard that one before? I know you have. The government has declassified a lot of UFO footage, but that doesn't mean it's evidence of aliens. It's just technology we don't understand yet. Or people just want to believe in aliens because they're looking for something more exciting than the reality of this world. It's a psychological phenomenon, not an actual mystery. Until there's deniable proof, I'm not even going to entertain the idea, right? I've seen all the arguments and none of them hold water. I'm not going to believe in something just because a few people say it's true. Just closed minded, not even open, not even willing to. And this big sky is the earth is round, the sky is all around the earth, right? And you go past the atmosphere, you're in space, right? You go through space and you eventually reach your destination. So if something were to come in, it would come in from the sky. Just not open to it. Not open to it. I don't care what anyone says. Aliens or ghosts are just fantasies. People are just too eager to believe in something they can't explain. Right? So be true with yourself if you're a skeptic. If you've caught yourself saying some of those things, right? Then you know where you fall in this chart. Well, it's very important to be true, true, accountable. Just be accountable for yourself, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. All right. So dogmat, and this is where this is going to be the kicker once we get through this. Dogmatic belief in skepticism. True skepticism involves questioning everything, including one's own biases. However, extreme skeptics often refuse to question their own assumptions and instead hold on to a rigid belief that anything outside of the mainstream narrative is false. That's what they did. That's what I experienced when I went to go talk to these skeptics the other day. And I'll be back to do it again. Just like religious fundamentalists reject contradictory scripture interpretations, extreme skeptics reject any evidence that does not align with their worldview. Check. Extreme skeptic communities can form echo chambers, which is where I was. I was in an actual echo chamber, a skeptic echo chamber. As they ridiculed, as they downplayed, as they didn't take into account any data that could be at least something interesting to look at, even just on the face of it. You got to look at the data, vet the data before you can determine or have an answer. But no, skeptics will immediately off the bat, no. Extreme skeptic communities can form echo chambers where alternative ideas are mocked and dissenting voices are ostracized. Mocked, right? That's what they do. This behavior mirrors cult-like groups. Oh, you don't say. You don't say. So the group that calls another group cult and religious, it's a UFO cult. This behavior mirrors cult-like groups that punish members for questioning the doctrine or considering forbidden ideas. So, even though you consider yourself a skeptic or an extreme skeptic, your behaviors are right in line with cult-like groups that punish members for questioning the doctrine or considering forbidden ideas. Appeal to authority instead of independent analysis. Instead of investigating claims independently, extreme skeptics tend to defer to mainstream science, government agencies, or established institutions, assuming they are infallible. Once again, in general, just forget UFOs for a second. Just across the board, we talked about so many just horrible things the government's been involved in against the people, and then also things that they have hidden. Right, still trying to get these JFK files to come out because people think or theorize that maybe the government had a hand in doing that. Right, so everyone understands that, but if the government comes out and says we have no proof of extraterrestrials, then these extreme skeptics will say, hey, the government said that, I believe them, right? And with no real reason to other than confirmation bias. That's it. This is similar to religious groups that rely solely on scripture or clergy interpretations rather than personal experience or exploration. If the UFO case, paranormal event, or consciousness study contradicts mainstream scientific opinion, it is dismissed outright without personal evaluation. Dismissal without investigation, faith in debunking, faith. So the same as extreme not extreme believers have cultish tendencies, and I can agree. When you point one finger, you got four fingers pointing right back at you, right? Is what they say. So you have to look in the mirror as an extreme skeptic who takes these positions and realize that you're essentially a part of a cult yourself in the behaviors. And it's something you got to wake up to. You got to just and maybe just like with any other cult, once you realize you're in a cult, then you're like, whoa, how could I ever have done that? But in these groups they'll say 50 times UFO cult, it's a cult, it's a cult, not realizing that they're in a cult themselves. Bananas. The knee-jerk assumption is if it's not wait, okay. Let's see. Okay. Just like some religious groups reject new interpretations of theology without studying them, extreme skeptics reject any claims to challenge the consensus without actually engaging with the evidence. Instead of critically assessing data, they often rely on prepared explanations. Oh, swamp gas. Oh, it's weather balloons. You must have been hallucinating. You must have been, without evaluating the specifics of each case. The knee jerk assumption is if it's not recognized by mainstream institutions, it must be nonsense. This approach ignores that history is full of scientific discoveries that were initially dismissed. right? Because science is an ever evolving place where something that they didn't think was true or possible, you find out 30, 40 years later that they've changed their tune because of new data that had come in. And now this is the new perspective, right? Exactly. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Let's see. We got, okay, moral superiority and mockery of outsiders. This is a big one. For whatever reason, they like to do this. For whatever reason. Extreme skeptics often act as though they are intellectually superior, mocking or belittling believers in UFOs, paranormal activity, or alternative science. This is reminiscent of religious sect that view outsiders as, quote, unworthy or lost souls in need of saving. Very similar, very similar. Instead of engaging in open discussions, extreme skeptics frequently resort to ridicule, condescension, and shaming, reinforcing their in group status. Then the us versus them mentality, cult of rationality. Many extreme skeptics create a binary worldview, dividing people into rational thinkers, which are themselves, and then, quote, gullible believers. Where have you heard that before? Anyone who disagrees, essentially, is a gullible believer. They're the rational thinkers. This black and white thinking is a classic cult tactic. By the way, let me read that again for any extreme skeptics that may tune in at a later time. This black and white thinking is a classic cult tactic, creating a strong in group identity and painting outsiders as unworthy of respect. Instead of acknowledging that belief and skepticism exist on a spectrum, they insist that one must either accept total mainstream consensus or be labeled as an irrational believer. Where does this sounds so familiar? And this is the behaviors that I was seeing as while interacting with the skeptical with the extreme skeptic group. And I'm just sitting there like, you guys don't realize that you guys are in a cult over here. Like I'm trying to tell you how the community is built of open-minded individuals who are just searching for answers, who've had experiences, who know what they saw, who are searching for answers. But you want to look past that statement. You want to call the entire community a cult, and do all that, not realizing you are in a cult. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Ritualized debunking, predetermined conclusions. Right here we go. Many extreme skeptics follow a predictable script when debunking claims, regardless of the evidence presented. Do we know that to be true? I know we know that to be true. This mirrors religious rituals where members repeat the same prayers, chants, or arguments without critically analyzing them. For example, a UFO sighting might be immediately dismissed as a, quote, misidentified drone before even reviewing eyewitness accounts, radar data, or video analysis. We know Mick West is good for that. A video comes out, you'll immediately look at it and say, "Oh, it's got to be. Oh yeah, it's balloons." I've seen him do that a million times. If you watch the Jesse Michaels podcast where he debated Merrick von Rennenkamp, Merrick brought data, receipts, proof, ran it off to him. Mick West, quick answer. I call him quick guess Mick West because he'll immediately give an answer. He'll say, "Oh, it looks like," and give his opinion on it and kind of try to shut it down. Like you haven't even processed the data. How could that be the determination that you've come to? So, lack of willingness to consider personal experience. A major flaw in extreme skepticism is the rejection of anecdotal evidence, even when it comes from credible sources, military pilots, scientists, government insiders.
So these pilots that are seeing these things, that know what they see in the sky, and you still from your man cave sit there and say, no, he's mistaken. That's not what he saw. It was probably a plane. It wasn't moving as fast as he said it was. I did the analysis from home, right? Now, in contrast, open minded skeptics recognize that scientific discovery often starts with observation and personal accounts first before leading to empirical study, right? Do they understand that? I'll read that again. In contrast, open minded skeptics recognize that scientific discovery often starts with observation and personal accounts before leading to empirical study. Dismissing all eyewitness reports as unreliable is anti scientific, as science itself depends on initial observation before forming hypotheses and conducting experiments. You got to make sure you share this one with the extreme skeptics. They should see this, because if they're being true with themselves, they'll see themselves in this and realize, whoa, wait a minute, that's not what I want to be. Because at the end of the day, this isn't to beat them up. This is for self-awareness, and hopefully get to a point to where we can come to the table and talk about something. That's the purpose of this. All right. So this is the cool one right here. So this is in a nutshell, right? So if you didn't show them any other part of the video, just make sure they see this. So how this compares to a cult or religious group, just side by side. So they don't think they're in a cult. They're pointing fingers, calling another group a cult, a UFO cult. You guys are in a cult. So these are behaviors. Rigid belief system, extreme skeptics rejects anything outside of mainstream science. The way that compares to a religious cult group is rejects anything outside the doctrine. Gatekeeping for extreme skeptics shuns those who question mainstream views, and a religious cult shuns those who question religious beliefs. Very similar, almost exact. Appeal to authority. Extreme skeptics trust government and institutions without question. For whatever reason, doesn't make sense. But then the religious cult, comparative to that, is trust clergy and sacred texts without question. So just because it's in the book means it was true. Dismissal without investigation. The extreme skeptic approach rejects alternative ideas before analyzing them. How it compares to a cult. Rejects heretical ideas without examination. Moral superiority. The extreme skeptic point of view, views believers as gullible or ignorant. The way it lines up with the cult, views outsiders as lost or sinful. The us versus them mentality. The extreme skeptic point of view, we are rational, they are irrational. The way it lines up with the cult, we are saved, they are not. They are lost. Predictable responses. The skeptical approach uses the same dismissive arguments. Lines up with the cult because they use the same religious dogma. Very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. Why this matters? Why does any of this matter? The irony is that extreme skeptics often accuse UFO believers and paranormal enthusiasts of being cult like, while they themselves exhibit many of the same behaviors. True skepticism means questioning everything, including institutional narratives and one's own biases. Read that again. True skepticism means questioning everything, including institutional narratives and one's own biases. So you can't let Sean Kirkpatrick just get away with the blanket statement of that we found nothing, there was nothing there, even though there's evidence to the counter, right? And even though in knowing what the government has done in the past, you can't just take the statement at face value. It's essentially what is being said here. An open minded approach allows for the possibility that mainstream science does not yet have all the answers, just as it didn't centuries ago when ideas like heliocentrism and quantum physics were dismissed. Now imagine that. Sit on that for a second. Conclusion: extreme skepticism is not real skepticism, it is a belief system in itself. Extreme skepticism is not real skepticism. It is a belief system in itself, one that mirrors the very religious and cult like behaviors it claims to oppose. A balanced approach requires maintaining skepticism while remaining open to evidence wherever it may lead. And why is this important? You know, once again, not to beat anybody up. Please reflect. Just look at where you fall at on the chart. Say, hey, yeah, that is kind of something that sounds like a way that I approach it. And, you know, yeah, I could do better. And yeah, I really do want answers, right? Hopefully that's what you do want answers at the end of the day. You're not just here to bash a community, like, right? You hopefully want answers at the end of the day. And we want you at the table. We want to all sit and talk and figure out what these things in the sky are. Because it doesn't matter who lied, who the whistleblower didn't do this, or didn't tie his shoes right, or whatever your criticism is. We're focusing on a person. And I told them this in the chat the other night. I said, remove the human element from this whole conversation, the criticisms of individuals, and you're still left with things that we don't understand that are in the sky. Let's figure out what that is instead of spending time throwing hate at the other side because you think those people are irrational believers and that there's nothing to this story, right? That's all we're asking, right? If you have any morals, any integrity, any compassion, then that's what you would do. You would do that. And like I said, some people may not even realize that that's the approach that they're taking. And then once we come together, this is kind of why suppressing whistleblowers or leaks when the public is divided, which is essentially, you're drawing a line in the sand when you say that about another group. When the public is divided, it's easier for governments to dismiss leaks or whistleblowers as outliers or conspiracy theorists, making it harder for credible information to reach the broader population. Divided opinions make it easy to isolate and discredit individuals speaking out against the government, right? So they love to see you doing this. They want you to. When they see you sitting up there bashing the experiencer community, they want you to do that because we're not then at that in that moment we're not on the same team. Where if we were, then it would be a scary thing for most governments and powers that be. They never want to see that because as a unit you can do a lot more, right? That's essentially what's being said here. What would happen if people united for truth? Pressure for transparency. Citizens across both skeptic and non-skeptic camps united to demand answers. The pressures on governments to provide clear, honest information would grow significantly, even though we know at the end of the day they'd fight tooth and nail to not present present us with anything. And this is kind of the final thing, right? This is why you should have an open mind. Because as you look at that, and let me bring that up on a full screen here. As you look at that picture, obviously billions of galaxies out there, billions of other Earth-like planets out there, just a lot of stuff we don't even understand. The nursery, the planet nursery, where stars and planets are born, right? Does that even make sense to you? We don't have the answers to that. We're not even close. And space doesn't even have an end to it. It just keeps going. As far as we know, it keeps going forever. What else do you know that does that? There isn't anything that we know or that we understand. We can't understand infinity. Everything on Earth has a beginning and an end that we know of, but space is infinite. So if we can say that that's true, first of all, it's amazing. But then you have to ask yourself, what do we really know about our reality? What do we really know? So I don't think there's really a world where we can sit up and say, "Oh, that's not possible." I don't think there's ever a situation where we could do that. When you look at that picture, it's what you're seeing there is right outside our atmosphere. We're floating in that right now, orbiting a ball of fire. We're moving through that right there, what you're looking at. It doesn't even make sense. So it's just very arrogant to position yourself as if there aren't things that you may not understand yet that could be possible or happening right now. And that's what this is all about, just to open up minds. Hey, let's recalibrate ourselves. You might have found out you're an extreme skeptic tonight. You might have found out you're an extreme believer tonight. You might have found out that either way you're in some sort of cult-like situation, right? So it's something that you have an opportunity to change. And it's like, why not do that if you have the opportunity? Then you can come to the table and we can have a fruitful conversation that moves the needle. That, ladies and gentlemen, is skeptics versus experiencers. Humanities divide, the roadblock, definitely to discovering the truth. Definitely a roadblock that we have to get past. That is the show. That is the show. You guys have been commenting like a mug up in here, and I just wanted to make sure we got through it. Let's see. See how many things I can pull up here. Oh, doesn't sound good, Cosmic Joe. Shunned by my own family because of my experiences, so I have no Thanksgiving or Christmas. I hate to hear that. I really do. Let me just see. Joe Monk says Pluto is still a planet. I'll take that one to my grave. Hey, if you still have your old science book, it still says it, so why not, right? Let's see. All right, just looking for opinions here on any of these topics. Uh. Yeah, cognitive dissonance and mass is cultish. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I mean. But as long as we're able to kind of point out the fact that this whole thing is in the cult, man, like, and it's offensive in some ways because it's like all we're doing. There's open-minded individuals in this community are looking for answers to experiences that they had. Nothing more. We're not buying snake oil. We're not, lining up for somebody that presents themselves as an all-knowing. Those people we stay away from. Right? We don't even. We see those people. We go the other way. Right? So once again, just recalibrate yourself and just understand that this community, there definitely is a culture side. I agree. I wish there was a way that we could separate. I've talked about this all the time. I don't appreciate them being a part of this community, truthfully, just being truthful. And I wish there was a way to kind of just discommunicate. But yeah, yeah. Let's see. All right. These are tough conversations, man. Sometimes you got to have them. We do that here on this channel. So that's what we did tonight. Somebody from within our own community, myself, saying things that, need to be said, and just really trying to bring in skeptics so we could have real conversations and really move this thing forward. All right. We're almost caught up in the chat, just checking for anything else in here. And we will get ready to wrap it up. Let me see here. See, you guys got some controversy going on out there. And sometimes these type of conversations bring that out, but what can you do? You have to have the conversation, you know. Sometimes it gets people going. Let's see. All right. Overlander, what are you saying here? A true open mind would ask a person with true curiosity how he or she knows someone is lying, and not just off the cuff retort of prove it. I mean, an honest look at how someone knows. Yeah, it's definitely messy, man. It's definitely messy, and but I still want to make sure that we kept it tasteful, which I think we did, and okay. All right. We are all caught up. All right. So you guys are doing your own thing. So just want to make sure that this got out there and we did this. Let's see. Shaq Valet at the buzzer. Thanks for using the mic filter, Rock. Can we start a GoFundMe for a filter for cult art? I hear you. With that being said, we got some things to promote here as well. I was a trained scientist. I love to see proof, but sometimes proof is not available. Sometimes it isn't, Joe Monk. You're right. Let's see. All right. So coming soon, social bits, pre-recorded short form content right here on the social dig. Working on it. I was going to attempt to do this that way, but there was just too much to go over. And we will still have that coming up soon. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And let's see, what else do we have here? The other shows, Social Dig, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific. My Experience with the Phenomenon coming back soon here. Fridays at 5 p.m. And then the late night calling show, Saturdays 11:30 p.m. Won't be tonight because we have other things going on, and actually there will be a replay going on over at Spaced Out Radio tonight, and I will be there tomorrow night with the Reverend Michael J. Carter, getting in some great conversation. And memberships available. Become a social soldier today. So memberships we do have on this channel, as you saw our members earlier, and anything that comes in for this channel actually goes to help put on better shows, hire editors, do all those fun little things to kind of spice up the channel. And so you can show your love support at any time. Would appreciate it. Also, and Joanne the Beekeeper, D. Nunley, Maggie M10, Flat 6, Miss Catherine Jones, Cosmic Joe Chronicles, W. West Decker, Still Poo 69, Polly Rotterman. Appreciate your love and support. Thank you. And the Social Shop. You can go ahead and get Social Dig swag at the Social Shop anytime. Right under the screen on YouTube, you'll see items displayed there. Click on it, takes you right in the store. We also have these custom humanity t-shirts, because the motto of this channel is the positive progression of humanity, which is the reason why we did this show tonight and touched on the subject the way that we did, because the end result is we are all humanity. Skeptic, non-skeptic, believers, extreme skeptics, we're all part of humanity, and we're trying to move the needle forward. Positive progression of humanity. And I'm going to go ahead and run the commercial for that, and then we'll get up out of here. Welcome to the Social Shop, courtesy of the Social Dig. I am Mr. Rob G, and we are bringing you exclusive gear, and tonight's no different. We have humanity t-shirts, the positive progression of humanity. Yes, you can go out into the world and proudly show everyone what humanity means to you. $32.99. And remember, if you're a social soldier, you get an additional 20% off the price. That's right. Being a social soldier gets you an additional 20% off. And keep in mind, depending where you are in the world, shipping fees and taxes will be applied. Bringing you exclusive gear right here at the Social Shop on the Social Dig. All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get up out of here, guys. Let's see. Anything else left? Let's see. Cash App. So you could all obviously super chat, Cash App. You can Cash App for the shirts. That's how you make the payment. Send me an email at Order Social Swag. Tell me size, color. We'll talk about it there, and then you would send payment here. And then that would be the final slide. Nope, the call-in number. Make sure you have this in your phone, 856-843-3444. This 856 the dig. If you're outside the United States, 001-856-843-3444, or that's 001-856 the dig. 24/7 line. You could call, leave a message about your experience. You could go ahead and just call and say, hey, I really like the show. Or you could just call and say, hi, hey, Rob G. It's all good. We love it. It's a cool thing to do, and we'd appreciate it. Thanks for your love and support. Richard Minnick, awesome guy, goes towards helping the show. And yeah, I really appreciate you. So with that being said, we've hit the end of the slides. The definitive UFO news show with Mr. Rob G, guys. It's been fun. Got to get to some business. I will talk to you guys soon. I'll see you tomorrow at the after hours. You guys all have a great rest of your day. Take care.